family and I recently had a chance to take a trip to Portland, Maine and Acadia National Park over the 4th of July. We had such a great time, never been up that way. All the sights were amazing. We stayed by the beach for a little while in Scarborough, then we moved over to Portland. We met up with some guys from Terlingua BBQ and cooked with them. The hospitality from Pliny and Melanie Reynolds and the entire staff at Terlingua, Greg, Brandon, Ben, great folks over there. The food scene there is obviously incredible. We feasted on seafood, all these oysters from Eventide. This is a James Beard award-winning place. Just amazing seafood. You got these guys shucking oysters right in front of you. This place was really, really good. We also took in a few breweries. This is a kombucha. They actually have some alcoholic and non-alcoholic kombucha. I had a big old plate of fried clams on my birthday from Lobster on the pier. Got some really good sausages at Thirsty Pig. This place was awesome. Big G's Deli in Waterville, Maine. They do huge sandwiches. I saw a YouTube video about these guys. Look at the size of that pancake. I only got a half sandwich. This thing is stacked with like pepperoni, ham, a bunch of veggies on there. My dad got a full sandwich. French toast was huge. I grabbed a little bit of caviar at this fish shop. Just ate it with some potato chips and a local beer just to myself while my parents were on a little harbor cruise. Grabbed a little Liquid Riot beer flight over here. These guys are a brewery and distillery, so I got a little whiskey flight too. We also were able to check out Novare Res Beer Cafe. This place was awesome. It's kind of like underground, feels very old world, and they have a ton of beers from all over. Leeward, a pasta place. We got so much pasta here, so good. Reservation was kind of hard to get here, but we were able to sit at the bar. Got a couple different types of pastas here, obviously all handmade. Space looked great, all the food was great. This particular squid ink pasta with extra squid on it was fantastic. And of course, the reason we came up here, Terlingua BBQ. These guys are awesome. We found them through a YouTube video. The same guys that did our Eater Smoke Point video did one with them too. And they have a little market in the front here, selling all kinds of Texas and Mexican inspired goods. They've got hot sauces, they've got rubs, they've got their own barbecue sauces, they've got some local beers, dried chilies, a bunch of merchandise. These guys are cooking really legit barbecue in Portland, Maine. They have an amazing outdoor multi-tiered patio. These are some everything spice ribs. There's brisket, pulled pork. Their honey butter cornbread is fantastic too. They do this griddled mac and cheese. They've got ceviches and they've got tacos. It's really, really tasty, including this salad. They're cooking on a hand-built reverse flow. This is a 500-gallon tank. It's got racks that slide out really easily, and the firebox is really cool. It's an old cast iron Maine stove. It's kind of tiny, but it's really cool. And they're doing the classics. They're doing brisket, they're doing ribs. They're not really doing by the pound stuff, but they have a barbecue board on their menu, which kind of changes meat every day. That's kind of stuff I like. So for the collaboration, we did some tongues and we did some cheeks. They got some really good local tongues. We did some barbacoa. We brought barbacados up there. Everything came out really good. It's really easy to teach people who already cook barbecue how to cook our cheeks and our tongue and our barbacoa and stuff. They did some jerk ribs for our collaboration. They tasted really great. That's Ben. He worked at Lewis Barbecue in Charleston with our very own David Cabrera. This is Lindsay adding some extra sauce, and we added some extra beer too to our barbacoa to kind of really rehydrate it and bring it back to life. I seasoned up the tongues and put them on. We did our normal cheek process and tongue process, the smoke and then the confit, and then for the tongues, the confit and then the smoke. These are their jerk ribs that came out really, really tasty. They weren't too spicy. I don't know if the Maine people can handle it up there. But they also did some armadillo eggs that came out super good. And this was our taco, our contribution, the tongue-in-cheek taco here. The jerk ribs, they have a little deviled egg potato salad. They got slaw. They threw the armadillo egg on there. Everything came out super good for the collab, and I think everybody was really, really happy. They were also able to do a guajillo and strawberry shortcake dessert that came out super good. This is Brandon slicing some of the armadillo eggs on the block. He worked at Moo's Craft Barbecue in LA before, and this is our finished plate with everything on there. Ribs, taco, armadillo egg, a couple sides, and they're really good cornbread. I can't say enough good things about these Terlingua BBQ guys. Of course, we can't be in Maine without cooking up some fresh Maine lobster. These guys came from Free Range Seafood on a recommendation from Pliny Reynolds at Terlingua BBQ. We got about 8 fresh, live, whole lobsters. These were soft shell, on the smaller side of what they had. I just steamed them up in just a little bit of water. We had 8 whole lobsters, we steamed them, and then I ended up reducing the steaming liquid, and when I picked the lobsters, I emptied out all of the head juices, the tamale, and all of the kind of water that was in the claws, and reduced that and made a nice little butter with that for our warm lobster rolls. We did cold lobster rolls and warm lobster rolls. So these steamed for pretty quick, just about 8 minutes or a little bit less. I don't want to overcook them, just till they turn red right like that. Then they went in the fridge to cool off. And now I'm going to give a little instruction on how to pick lobsters. First, we separate the tail from the body. I took the claws off, I took the legs off. Now I know how to harvest the meat from the tail because I've done so many crawfish boils in my life. You crack with the curve of the tail, and then you try to open it like a book the other way. Then I started to take the meat out of the claws, just crack it with a little tong because they didn't have a cracker at this Airbnb, and then just kind of peeled the little pieces away until I was able to pull out a whole claw. I kind of did the same thing with the knuckles. Knuckle meat is kind of underrated, it's really good. Just crack it to kind of break up the shell, and then peel the shell away and try to harvest the meat as whole as we possibly can. Then for the legs, what we did was rolled them out with a rolling pin a little bit. I wanted to get as much meat off of these lobsters as possible. I don't cook lobsters very often, I don't eat lobsters very often, so I really wanted to take my time and make sure that we got all the meat out. These soft shells are a little bit easier to pick than the hard shells. We got some hard shell at Luke's Lobster, my mom did, and it was much harder to pick. Once all the lobster meat was picked, I gave it all a rough chop, but kept some of the claws whole just because I think it's a really nice little presentation. What I did with this lobster meat was took the kind of reduced steaming liquid and juices from the bodies and reduced that a little bit more. Then once it was super hot, I added a couple knobs of butter and just let the butter melt in there, so it was kind of this really good warm lobster butter. At the very end, I mixed some herbs in it, and then I tossed the lobster in it. So we did some warm Connecticut style with herbs, and we did some cold Maine style with herbs. Here's me throwing the lobster chunks into that kind of finished warm butter, and it really doesn't cook them. You don't want to overcook them, you just want to warm them through. This is kind of pre-mixed, the mayo version. Little salt, pepper, mayo, lemon, that's it. Frankie enjoyed her lobster. 4th of July America plates. This is an edited photo of the really delicious all cut up lobster. I just couldn't stop eating this stuff. This is the warm stuff. Just by the spoonful was so good. And then here is the piece de resistance. Lobster claw, hot dog. America, baby. Last thing we did before we left town was go on a little lobster cruise. These guys, Lucky Catch, they were on Somebody Feed Phil. So they take you out, they show you how they harvest lobsters, how they bait the traps. They talk to you about who can be a lobsterman, talk to you about how big the lobsters need to be. They show you the difference between a male and a female. They talk about how they preserve the egg laying or the fertile females by a little notch in the tail, and how that has been done the same way since like the 30s, and now it's like an actual law. They pulled up some lobster pots or traps and didn't have any lobsters in them, but they found a couple crabs. This was a little peaky toe crab. I learned they don't really harvest these in Maine. They just kind of throw them back. But everybody had fun. Frankie got to pet her first lobster, and that was her first time on a boat too. They also took us by some oyster cages we shucked a bunch of oysters right there, fresh out of the ocean, right on the boat. My mom tried her first oyster, had some shell in it. I was shucking oysters for the whole boat. Some dude cut his hand, stabbed his hand with the oyster knife. Look at my dad, he's a pro. Go Gary, slurping them down. And that's Portland, Maine.